right. So the tactic that I was talking about just a few minutes ago that's really helped me in my business, to scale my business, to grow, to earn a lot of really big clients in my career there again, in my coaching career and in my corporate career, those things that really helped me those things that really helped me were around positioning myself as the expert in my field. Even when I wasn't necessarily the expert, I certainly wasn't the only expert, but positioning myself as someone who can be trusted because I have a level of expertise, positioning myself as someone who has the knowledge that can help someone to, in your case, buy or sell real estate. I have the experience, the knowledge, and the confidence, really. So those are three big pieces that go into ingredients, if you will, that go into positioning yourself as an expert. Some of you are experts in your field, and this is why having a niche is so important, because no one can be the expert in everything. I don't care how long you've been in an industry or how many clients you've had, you can't know it all. And so the more defined of a niche that you have, geography, like we talked about that one day, it could be geography, it could be type of property, it could be type of client, type of customer, it could be a lot of different things. But the more defined that niche is, that area of expertise is, then it allows you to really position yourself as the expert in that category. I'm going to give some examples here, and it'll make it a little bit more clear, and I'll give you some very specific examples of things that you can do to position yourself as an expert. Here's the deal, though. People want to work with people that they trust, that they know, that they like. I was talking with a friend of mine just yesterday, and she made a great point. She said, whether you're selling widgets or whether you're selling houses, whether you're selling cars, at the end of the day, people will buy from you. People will use you as their professional if they like you. So there's a big likability factor that has to go into this real estate industry as well. However, because it's such a large financial transaction, such a big deal in someone's life, we're not talking about selling tiddlywinks or selling Twinkies or selling something little. This is a big deal in people's lives. Because of that, I think we'd all agree that a big piece of, yes, likability is important, and also trust and confidence in that person is a big piece of it as well. So how do you exude that confidence and that expertise? How do you show that? Well, let's talk about it. So let's go on and see. I couldn't get my Facebook to work for the first time, but let's see if I can get my screen share to work. All right, so far it looks good. Looks like we're going to be able to get it going. All right, so you would ask yourself, are you an expert? Do you feel, this is not just an opening slide. I want you to ask yourself, do you feel like an expert? There again, you can't boil the ocean. You can't do everything for everyone, but do you feel like an expert in your niche area? Do you feel like an expert in the neighborhood that you're marketing to? Do you feel like when you're marketing to international investors through Facebook ads, and you're doing a bunch of work to go to international counsel, and you're trying to really position yourself as the real estate agent that people should use when they're coming from other countries to America to buy their real estate investment? Do you really think that you're an expert in that field? Here's the wonderful thing about this question. If the answer, and only you know, if you're going to be honest with yourself, only you know that real answer. But here's the great thing. If the answer is no, if you feel like, maybe I could know a lot more about this subject or this segment of the market, guys, we're not trees. We can change. Our futures are not predestined to a degree where we can, we can make changes. We can learn. How would you become an expert? Well, you'd study. You'd get involved in that area, in that community. Here's another question. While you're asking yourself questions today, I want you to think about two questions, really. It's two-part. One, would you trust yourself to buy or sell a property, or to do your mortgage loan officer, to do your mortgage, would you hire yourself? Or would you say, the question on the screen, for those of you who are looking, says, who would you trust, or who would you hire? Is there someone in your office? This is what I want you to envision. If not you, if the answer is yes, I would totally hire myself, because I know that I know everything about the market. I know the answers to the questions. I know I'm a great negotiator. I know I'm going to go to bat for my clients, all those good things, which is great. But it's not a terrible thing if the answer is no. It just means that you have a little bit of work to do, but that's what professional development and personal development is all about, right? It's a journey. It's a growth process. But back to this question on the screen, who would you trust? Is there somebody in your office, or maybe that you know in the marketplace, that you would trust more? That if you couldn't hire yourself, this is all hypothetical, of course, you can't hire yourself in this scenario, you had to choose some other real estate agent out of your office or out of your city, who would you hire? You don't have to say it out loud, but to yourself, who would you hire? And I want you to think about, reverse engineer it a little bit. I want you to unpack the reasons why you trust that person, why you would feel comfortable working with that person, why you would want that person to represent you in a very large transaction such as real estate. The answers to that question are very powerful, and because everybody's a little different. Is it that person carries themselves? And the next slide I have says, do you talk? Do you walk? Do you look like an expert? We know what builds confidence in us when we meet somebody. Is it the way, when I say talk, is it the words that person uses? Do they have the right answers? Are they reluctant to answer? Do they speak confidently, or do they muffle their voice when they answer a question? Do they seem certain? Do they walk? I don't mean just literally how do they walk, but do they carry themselves in a way where their shoulders are back and they walk in like they know what's going on? Because, by the way, there's always situations when people aren't clear or don't know exactly what to do or what to say. But do they give the impression that they always know what to say and how to carry themselves? And do they look the part? We're going to go into, in a couple days, I have a day that I added in because I have so many things recently that are coming up with my clients. So I think it's almost like a message right to me that I need to talk about this on this 30 days that we have together. But I'm going to do and have a little bit of a conversation in a couple days on a topic that I've never done before in any of my live seminars or workshops or virtual podcasts or anything. I've never talked about it because it's such a sensitive subject, but I'm going to talk about some hidden things that might be sabotaging some of you that you might not even realize. And why it's a delicate subject that I don't talk about historically is because they're very personal things that could be perceived as too personal. And I'm talking about the way you carry yourself, words that you might use that might turn people off, very nuanced, in some cases, very small things, but they've hurt these little small things have really hurt some of my clients recently. And so I feel it's incumbent on me to share and I won't share names, of course, but I'll share some of the stories of things that have happened in the effort and the spirit of hoping it'll help you. But back to look. I bring that up around look because one of the things was about how this particular agent, how she carried herself, how she dressed. She seemed disheveled and she kind of didn't seem pulled together. And it gave one of her clients the impression that if she wasn't put together in her own life, that how could she possibly help them with buying and selling their real estate? So though certainly real estate is not a modeling industry, it's not a fashion industry either, you certainly still want to present yourself as a professional, i.e. an expert, and there is a way to do that, no question. So if you want to give yourself all the advantages that you possibly can when you're going into either a listing presentation or when you're walking around interacting with people in your community, one of the interesting things about real estate is, like many businesses, that you are the product. That you're selling homes and you're selling mortgages, but people are hiring you. You're applying for a job every single day. Every single time you interact with someone, that person is considering hiring you, referring you to somebody that they know, or maybe hiring you in the future. So do you walk, talk, and look like an expert? And those are questions there again that sometimes are tough, but ask yourself those questions, and the answers can be very telling. Here are some very specific ideas. I always like to try to give you some things to think about, things to chew on later, and then I like to give you some tactical, very specific things that you could try. This is one of those specific tactical things. So here's a great way to position yourself as an expert, and it doesn't cost a dime, and it doesn't take very much time at all. So I'm speaking to you folks who don't want to spend a lot on marketing, but that also really want a lot of bang for your buck. A way to position yourself, to make yourself seem like an expert, is to answer questions. I think we'd all agree. If you were in a big group of 50 people, which of course right now, I guess with social distancing we're not, but let's pretend, let's pretend 6 months ago, you were in a big group, 50 people at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and someone stood up in the middle of the room and they said, I have a question about the local market here at the Winter Park, Florida Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I have a question. If anybody in the room can answer this question, I have a question on what are 2 things, if I could just do 2 things to help sell my property for the highest value possible. Does anybody have an idea of what 2 things would be good for me to do before I list my property? What are 2 things I could do to help my home's value? And you, lo and behold, you're there in the room, lucky for them. So you raise your hand and say, excuse me, I'll stand up. Yes, I'm a real estate professional. I'm a local realtor, and I actually have more than 2 things I can share with you. But yes, there are some things you can do that can help the marketability of your and saleability of your house. Guys, answering questions, I think we'd agree in that scenario. Would you look like an expert? Of course you would. Everybody in the room would be listening to you, watching, all eyes on you, and you're just up there talking about all the stuff that you know, right? Well, guess what? On this slide on the screen, I have answer questions on Quora or Yahoo Answers. So this exact scenario is playing out online every single day, also on social media. When people ask questions, you can go in and answer those questions or bring tell some stories that help, give someone some clarity. But you can specifically go to Quora or Yahoo, and there are places on those sites, there's others as well, but where people ask questions, and you just sign up to create a Quora profile, and then you can answer those questions. By the way, there might be 30 people that already answered that same question. Cool, it doesn't matter. Still answer the question. Same thing on LinkedIn. There's places where people ask questions, and then you can provide answers. It's a great way for not only Listen, you don't have to be Beyonce. You could be Beyonce's manager and have a ton of success and not have to have all the stress of being the person out front, the person that's taking, the upfront risk, right? You don't have to be the person that has the fame that's getting the paparazzi taking the picture. The person's manager is doing very well, and they're able to stay behind the scenes. And I always think of that as you don't have to do everything yourself. You don't have to have a party. Another way to say this is if you want to meet a lot of people, there's a couple ways you could do it. You could throw a party. By the way, I'm talking about an imaginary thing because right now we're not throwing parties, right? But you could throw a party and invite 100 people over, or you could still meet 100 people if you're just a guest at that person's party. And the cool thing about being a guest at someone's party is you weren't the one that had to put the whole thing on and organize it and spend money and time, putting on the party. So there's always different ways to get to the same result. And what I mean about being a guest is, could you be a guest on someone's podcast? I'm a guest on a podcast almost on a daily, sometimes more than once a day, but almost on a daily basis. I'm a guest on somebody's podcast. How does that happen? I reached out to people in the beginning. Now it's kind of taken a life of its own. But the first 6 months that I owned my own business, I went out and asked people, hey, I see you have a podcast. Would you like me to be a guest on your podcast? Here are 10 topics that I can talk about. And all of you can do that exact same thing. Here are 5 things that I can speak about because I'm an expert in these things. These are 5 topics that I'm comfortable talking about, and reach out to people online. You guys all see them like I do on Facebook. Everybody's got a podcast show or a video show or a true podcast, which is just a true podcast is just audio. So you don't even have to be on video, so you don't have to worry about that. But just reach out to people. People love to have a real estate professional or a finance professional on their show. So if it's not in your wheelhouse or not within your comfort level to start your own show, cool. There's other ways to do it. Just go on, be a guest on somebody else's show. You get darn near the same benefit if you do it consistently. Use social media as proof. I'm not going to beat this horse because we've kind of beat it to death, I think. Already, but ways that you can use social media as proof. Gosh, you could, by using professional pictures that make you look like an expert, because experts would use professional pictures, right? They wouldn't use pictures that didn't look to a certain caliber. You can share tips, expert tips. Use the word, by the way, I haven't said this yet. I'm an expert. My expertise, my experience, all of my past clients tell me. I've helped so many people in this situation. The words that you say are very powerful and important. I've said before, and I'll say it again, people aren't mind readers. So just because you know that you care about helping people and you know that you have a great work ethic and you know that you'll answer your phone 7 days a week and you know that whatever, right? You'll go to bat for your customer and negotiate everything within your power to get them the best deal on that next house that they're trying to buy. You know all those things, but you have to say the words sometimes, just literally and figuratively. You have to say the words and then also put them on your website. If I go and look at your webpage right now or your profile on your Facebook, if that's what you're using as your website, if I go look you up online, do I see words like expert, advisor, experienced, knowledgeable, right? Do I see these things? Or are you just talking about the market that you work in? How do I see you describe yourself? A couple quick last things. Gosh, I could talk forever about positioning yourself as an expert. Know what people care about. And by the way, as I'm thinking about this, it's interesting, when it comes to positioning yourself as an expert, some of you, as I said those words about talking about yourself and how you describe yourself, sometimes the thing that holds us back is that we don't want to seem braggadocious. We don't want to feel like we're bragging about ourselves. And some people have that more than others. And I would tell you that it's not bragging. You're just sharing your knowledge and your experience. I mean, I guess, like I said, bragging to me insinuates something negative or something that's, I don't know, that you're trying to show off, I guess. And in a way, positioning yourself as an expert is kind of showing off. It's showing off your expertise, though. It's showing off with the spirit of trying to let people know that you're there to help them and that you're the right person for the job. So, like I said, it would require me digging a little deeper in a one-on-one conversation to understand if that could be the thing that might be holding you back. But I think some people are so humble to their own detriment that they don't like to talk about their expertise, and that sometimes is a shame. Know what people care about. When an expert would actually really understand what people want, what people are looking at. I put this slide on. I'm trying to see if I can move my little screen here. I thought this was interesting. I'm going to share two slides from NARS, your National Association of Realtors, does a yearly annual report. And I don't know if you guys have ever looked at it, but if you Google search NAR annual report, you will be able to go on to the NAR website. It's open to you don't even have to log in or anything. You just go on there and it's like a 70-page deck, a PowerPoint of all sorts of data and all sorts of surveys that NAR has done and data that they've collected each year. They have one of these. And I thought this was an interesting slide. I use that NAR deck quite a bit to pull little pieces of information. I'm going to share two slides with you really quick here. One is environmentally friendly features considered very important. I thought this was interesting. When people cared about, they surveyed buyers to see what people cared about. And when they said that environmentally friendly features were important to them out of that category, which was a high percentage, by the way, of buyers, they said, yeah, they cared about that. It was at least something that they took into consideration when buying their next home. This is just one slide. I just picked one as an example to show you that if you really want to be an expert, doesn't it make sense to find out there again, put your time and energy into something that people actually care about. This is just one of many slides that shows what people really cared about in different age groups, by the way, when it came to features on a home that they were looking to buy. It's a lot of information on this slide. I encourage you to go check out the NAR's entire deck. But just as an example, people that were between 30 and 39, the thing that they cared about the most out of all the features of environmentally friendly homes was commuting costs being low. So that's pretty interesting. They wanted to live close to work and grocery stores and things like that. The next thing that they cared about in order was heating and cooling costs. The next thing they cared about was the windows, doors, and siding, the insulation, I think is what they meant, but installation. Then they cared about energy efficient lighting, and they cared about energy efficient appliances. I'm just reading a chart for those of you who aren't looking. But in other words, an expert would do the research is all I'm trying to say and find out what people really care about. And then once you know that majority of people care about commuting costs as a feature when they're buying a home, then you can target your marketing and maybe bring that up when you're showing people homes. Don't talk about what's the least thing. Solar panels being installed on the home. That's the last thing that people cared about almost across the board. So maybe that's not something that you talk about as the first thing, solar panels. I'd go with, something that's more popular, commuting costs and heating and cooling costs. And then a friendly reminder is perfect timing because we're out of time. Guys, this is a big slide. Like I mentioned, I like to go into this NAR presentation. Let me move my little thing here. And it's not whatever you want to call it. Somebody's philosophy is the word I was looking for. It's not someone's opinion. It is actually fact, how buyers found their real estate agent. Now, there's a different slide for sellers, but we'll talk about that later. But how did buyers find their real estate agent? Across the board, number one way that people found their real estate agent, their buyer's agent, no question, triply than the next way. Number one way or route is they were referred by or is a friend, neighbor, or relative. Number one, 50% of the time people were referred by a friend, neighbor, or relative to that real estate agent, or they were that friend, neighbor, or relative. Human connections, right? Personal connections. The next way for those who aren't looking at this slide, and this is, I'll repost this on Facebook since I couldn't get it on live Facebook. I put it on YouTube, but I'll link it on Facebook so you guys can go back if you're not able to see the slide. It's an interesting slide. The next way that people found their real estate agent was they used the same person again that they had used before. That makes sense, right? So they used the agent previously. That's the number 2 way. Then third way is they inquired about a property that they viewed online, and then they started working with that agent. So, but number 1, by hands down, by 4 times the amount of number 2 is they were referred. So I just put this in here as a last slide, as a reminder, as you go about your Friday, going into a holiday weekend that I think will be busy for real estate sales. Guys, remember, it's those human connections. It's the people, the highest likelihood that you have of your next transaction. I'm going to make a prediction. The highest likelihood of where that person is coming from, whether it's a seller or a buyer, or whether it's a refi or a purchase, that person is likely going to come from a referral of somebody that you already know, someone that is already in your phone as a contact right now. So even though I'm a big believer in prospecting and going out and marketing to new people, we always have to do that, right? We have to keep adding new people into our CRMs and bringing new people into our world. I'm a big fan of that, but I'm an equal fan of doubling down on the people that you already have existing relationships with, calling those people that you met at an open house 6 months ago. You already did all the work to do the open house. Why haven't you followed up with those people? It's a shame, right? And it's a waste of effort and energy and time to meet all these people and then just do nothing with it and never follow up with them. The hardest part is actually meeting them in the first place. So anyways, I think we've talked about that copious amounts of time now. We'll continue to talk about it because my goal for all of you is, like I've said before, to connect people that are today and tomorrow and Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, to connect people that are out looking to buy real estate right now, are looking to sell their house right now. I'm trying to make sure that those people are connected with the good, hardworking, intelligent, caring people that I know are watching this video right now. So there's people that are looking for your services. Your job is to let them know that you're there to help them. So with that said, I hope you guys have a great Friday. And if you're doing any celebrating this evening, I hope you have a great evening. And I will be here tomorrow on the 4th of July. I will be here at 8:30. So I hope to see some of you guys there. Take care.